So that's why I feel like when we see a lot of times American entertainers, American speakers, Americans, company founders, they know their pitch very well. They know how to talk you. They kind of like sell you things you didn't even know you needed. And it's kudos to them having that, maybe that education, and it comes from maybe the American dream, maybe like everyone is a go-getter there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't want it. Sometimes I feel like it's a clash with European values where it's more like humble, and it's like it's a bit different. And it's funny how sometimes those, again, cultures clash, and because sometimes like people overdo it and you're like, actually, now let's not talk about work.
Yeah.
So you have to keep those in mind. That formed me quite a lot in my life. And I think also I grew up with older brother, like supporting me along the way. My dad would always be like, hey, he would always tell me when I was younger, he said, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter if you're young and old, it matters if you're a fool or smart, like kind of dealing with that topic of also not just if you're a woman or not, but also ageism, right? If you're young or old, it doesn't matter. It's just what matters if you're good at this, right? So a lot of this kind of thoughts come to your mind and they form you and they give you maybe a little bit more confidence in what you do. But I was not confident when I launched the podcast, for sure. I was like turning red. In my first episodes, I was like red as a tomato, like complete. And I'm not a person who blushes. Like I'm not like, I was just red because I was so focused and concentrated and nervous and excited at the same time. Like I was like, whoa. And it just gradually gets better and better, and you become more confident, less nervous. And that's the journey of life when you start new things, I think. And I would say with approaching the events, it's like, okay, we either do this like this is the best thing ever, or we don't do it. I feel like if you start doubting yourself and thinking this is not going to be great, then also people might feel that, right? You need to sell it. You need to be like, this is going to be the best event. This is going to be the coolest guest. You'll be treated to best experience. And that confidence not only sets you in the right headspace, it sets the attendees to also, I think, respect and prepare what they're going to be experiencing. And if you're a bit like apologetic or not confident or not even sure if you're excited of hosting it, why do you expect people to attend and have a good time? So that's why I'm always trying to approach these events, and when I get the guests, with confidence and excitement of having them on the show, showing them that I'm passionate about it, showing that I'm very professional about planning everything. They will be taken care of. We'll have a full house. This is going to be a great conversation. I'll make sure they feel confident. And if we publish pictures of them, it's a flattering picture. So I make sure that they feel, my podcast guests, in the good hands. They know that it's just going to be a few hours of their time, but it's going to be really good hours. And same for if I work with venue partners, I also make sure we discuss all those things and they know the benefit they're getting. And then the audience and community that comes to events also very confidently communicate what to expect, what you're going to get out of it, and being very transparent about like all the little details of the event, so the expectations and reality meet. And even better, where I can like have a cherry on top and surprise them of things they didn't expect, So I think that's just the attitude, but the imposter syndrome is sometimes there in a way like, can I do this? Should we do it here? Or there's small things that just didn't work out and I have to act like it's fine. Like yesterday, for instance, at the event, we had a little hiccup at the bar. Like there was supposed to be 2 people supporting at the bar and it was 1 person. And we had 80 guests.
Mm-hmm.
And the podcast starting in 10 minutes. And we're like, everyone needs to have their cocktail, right? Because we promised everyone a cocktail. And I was like, okay, we need to jump in to help her out. Otherwise, I could see it's a lot for her. So I'm thinking like, we need to solve this together as a team right now. Although I need to get in a headspace to be a performer right now on the stage. I was not planning to prepare cocktails. And me, the sound engineer also, we do the cocktails for 70 people before the podcast. Wow. And totally like distributing, like you do the ice, I put the tequila shots, kind of like asking people, what kind of drink you want? Do you want like this one, that one? So I ended up doing that. And again, of course, there's a part of me thinking, okay, this is not right. This is going a little bit off. Am I still in the right headspace for the podcast? But you're like, but then at the end of the day, that's inside of me. I was standing there, I was like looking like this is totally normal. This was part of the plan. Yeah. Because if I'm going to show the nervousness stress I dislike, people will start feeling it. My partner will start feeling it. My community, my guests will start feeling it, that something is off. But if I say, hey, they notice it's a small hiccup, but this is fine, then they also kind of like treat it like this. And when I had like 2 drinks, I was like, so I just have like 2 lemon spritz here, like, and or do you want grapefruit? They were like, Dara,
Yeah.
it's fine. We go with the lemon. Like they could see like like this is not the time to select your drink.
Yeah.
And, so those things, and you just don't try to emphasize on things that you might be not confident about or emphasize on things that go wrong. You still try to take them at ease, feel like it was a small mistake, and still be calm and kind of like spread that confidence and calm vibe. And then everyone is then in the right headspace as well. But there's always something going on in my head. But I just try to discipline those thoughts.
Yeah. Have you always been like perfectionist? Or how do
It
you consider
changed.
yourself?
It changed a lot. I used to be a perfectionist a lot at university. So I would like to study. I would have a certain setup, a certain schedule. At work, also at the beginning, I did. And I realized actually with becoming more senior in my roles, having more things on my to-do lists. And also I think the big learning was when I had my podcast and my full-time job at a hyper-growth company. Like I was like, perfectionism can go smoke a cigarette now, because I'm not going to get anything done if I'm going to be a perfectionist. And I was such a great school, like the best learning from running my own passion project and having a full-time job, because I became so output oriented and I became very precise what needs to be done, what's a must have and what's good to have. And also using a lot of Pareto principle, 80-20 rule of how I approach the tasks, what's important I need to tackle right now, what's something maybe I can delegate.